So let's go ahead and take a couple minutes and talk about genres and conventions. And both of these are terms that you might have heard before, but it's also okay if you haven't. So a genre is a category of work, and sometimes a work can be classified by its form. Is it a short story, a poem, a play, an essay, etc.? Or classified by content. Science fiction, horror, pulp, romance, mystery, documentary, all of these are examples. And there are other ways to classify genres, but these are the two that I'll just highlight today. Now, when it comes to conventions, think of conventions as the mental checklist we have when we read, watch, write a particular genre. So, if you read a poem, you expect certain things to be in the poem. If you watch a horror film, you expect certain things to be in a horror film. And these expectations are in some ways predictable, right? Like we know that a film about like a high school drama is always going to have some form of cheerleader or popular girl in it, and that popular person is often a nemesis of some sort. Sorry, my ringer is going off in the middle of the lecture. Good times. So to give you some more specific examples, think about, mysteries and what the detective is often like. Whether male or female, if you think about a detective and how it's represented in stories, they are often people who are isolated, have a hard time with relationships, are often seen as having some type of either addiction or some type of personal history or anguish, right? If you think about action films, the antagonist in an action film is often, or even a story, often has certain qualities to them. Or if you think about a story that's based on romance and how certain obstacles always seem to come, into play, right? The love triangle of sorts, or some moment of huge misunderstanding that makes the person think that they no longer can care for who they thought they could care for, or that they were mistaken about the person that they've fallen in love with, right? All of those things are expectations and conventions. So why think about these things? That's an excellent question. So I think it's kind of funny because I'm pointing out it's an excellent question, even though I'm the one that put it there. So, take that for what it's worth. But, it helps us know or understand different genres and allows us to critique and make preferences. If you see several Marvel films, you develop interpretations of the expectations and or even superhero films in general, right? And then it allows you to start to critique them the more you see different ones within that genre, right? It allows us to build a certain amount of knowledge on a subject. So if you read a certain number of books that have to do with a certain mental health issue or some type of scientific concept, right? Then you build a certain amount of knowledge and you start to see commonalities between the books that you're reading or the films that you're watching, etc. And consequently, it's easier to locate other works that you'll enjoy, right? And most importantly, when we look at these concepts, which apply to both fiction and nonfiction, we start to be able to make deeper connections and levels of critique, right? Because we can, as we anticipate how a story unfolds, we start to see where the creator has used twists on those conventions to make the story different. And in doing that, it helps us determine its value, right? So for example, and you can fully disagree with me about this, but if you think about Black Panther, right, and the ways in which that movie followed certain rules or expectations of films of that nature, and yet at the same time, it twisted it so that what you had by the end was a film that for many had much larger value, right, much larger worth. So these are things that you want to think about as you're looking at the different texts this semester and really starting to look at the ways in which form and content gets manipulated and reinvented in order to create unique stories.